The Caverns of Infusion wing is the second wing in the Vault of the Incarnates raid. It is home to Terros, Sennerath, and Kurog Grimtotem. Very quickly going to describe how this guide is set up. The video is split into chapters for each boss. You can find them down below. The first chapter will describe the boss fight mechanics and each of the important abilities. The second chapter will be role-specific duties, meaning if you're the tank, what you should do and look for, if you're the healer, what you should do and look for, and if you're the DPS, what you should do and look for. So let's jump into it. Terros. This is a huge stationary boss that is a DPS check. About every 90 seconds, the boss will make 1/4 of the arena unplayable, meaning the raid has about 6 total minutes to kill the boss before it's a wipe. The boss will create rock pillars that need to be grouped up so that the tank can destroy them. Tectonic Barrage. Terros only uses this if no player is within auto attack range. This deals massive damage to every raid member every second. Rock Blast. A random player will be targeted. Other players need to group up in order to split up the damage. This will also inflict some players with Awakened Earth. This deals damage to other players that are close to you. Pay attention to the ring. Once the timer hits 0, it creates a pillar. These pillars need to be grouped up so that they can be destroyed by the boss. Each standing pillar deals damage to every raid member every 2 seconds. When a pillar is destroyed, it will deal damage to every raid member and apply a dot that lasts 10 seconds. Concussive Slam. This ability applies a debuff that increases damage taken by 50%. This debuff stacks. Concussive Slam also destroys the Awakened Earth pillars. Terros will target the tank and a cone will appear. The tank needs to aim this cone towards the pillars. Shattering Impact. Terros will target a member and create a large circle under them. Everyone should stay away. This also causes rubble to fall from above, so watch your feet and don't stand in the circles. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Stay close to the boss. Aim the Concussive Slam towards the pillars. Once you have 2 stacks of the Concussive Slam, the other tank should taunt. Healers. Each Rock Blast will send burst damage to the group of players that are grouped. The more pillars active, the more damage to the entire raid. Once the pillars are destroyed, expect more raid-wide damage. DPS. Focus on big numbers. Also be aware that if you are targeted, to group up the pillars. Sennerath. This boss has 2 phases. Phase 1. The boss will remain in the center of the room and every 80 seconds will move up to the next platform. Each platform has 1 large ad that needs to be immediately killed and smaller ads that can be cleaved. The ramps and platforms will be covered in ice and spider webs, causing additional damage and greatly impacting your movement. The boss will also attempt to pull raid members off of the platform. Phase 1 abilities. Web Blast. This is used on the tank. It adds a stackable debuff that increases damage taken. Breath of Ice. Targets random players and places icy ground at their feet. Icy ground deals damage to anyone standing on it, makes your character slide, and will begin to expand. Chilling Blast. Targets raid members and creates a circle around them. Deals damage for 4 seconds and then explodes. Any other players standing within the ring will take massive damage. Enveloping Webs. Will target random players. Once the debuff is on you, the player will drop sticky webbing every second for 6 seconds. Sticky webbing reduces players' movement speed and applies a stackable debuff. If a player reaches 8 stacks, the player will be stunned in a webbing for 30 seconds. The only way to remove this is by killing a small spider near them. Gossamer Burst. The boss will grab every player and attempt to pull them off of the platform. Use movement abilities or the webbing on the ground to negate the pull. The ads. Frost Breath Arachnid. There is only 1 of these per platform. Needs to be tanked near the boss, facing away from the other melee. Has an attack, Freezing Breath, that deals AoE damage in front of it and puts more icy ground. This needs to be burned ASAP. Caustic Spiderlings. Small spiders that will appear throughout the fight. They need to be killed, but are not a priority for the tank. When they die, they use Caustic Eruption, which removes the sticky webbing debuff and the webbing on the floor. Role-specific duties. Tank. You need to swap tanks at 5 stacks of Web Blast. Face the big spider ad away from the party, and tank the ad at the bottom of the platform and move it up when the ground is covered from the icy ground. Healers. When the boss pulls every member, expect large, consistent damage to every member. Any players not keeping distance during Chill Blast will take massive damage. DPS. Kill the big spider ad ASAP. If a member is trapped in webbing, then kill the little spiders near them to break them free. Be mindful of your webbing debuff and don't get pulled off the ledge. Phase 2. Sennerath begins channeling Apex of Ice. This must be interrupted ASAP as it reduces all damage by 99% and deals increasing damage to every member every second. Tank the boss in the center at the back of the arena. A majority of members should be in the middle of the platform and less targeted with Chilling Blast. Players with this should run to the outside edge of the platform. The boss will try to push raid members back towards the ramp that they came up on using abilities and covering the arena in ice. If the raid is pushed back to the ramp, they will suffer from permafrost, which will result in a wipe. Chilling Blast. This time leaves a glacial plume, which not only drops the icy ground, but if a player steps in it, it will knock them back. Suffocating Webs. After 6 seconds, will always wrap the player in webs. Needs to be broken by killing the small spider ads. If you are targeted with this, you should run towards the tank to make it easier to be broken free. Repelling Blast. Instead of pulling everyone towards the boss, she now knocks everyone backwards. Permafrost. This is an environmental ability. If raid members get too close to the ramp, leading to the last platform, they will begin taking damage. This damage stacks and increases every second. Sennerath is trying to push the raid back towards the permafrost. Quick interrupt here. If you've watched this far, then please do me a favor and hit the like button. It only costs you 1 second of your time and it really helps out my channel. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Swap at 5 stacks of Web Blast. Also keep an eye on the icy ground. Healers. Apex of Ice will make this fight extremely difficult if not interrupted quickly. Repelling Blast will deal damage to every member. DPS. Focus on big numbers and be mindful of your positioning to not get blown off the side. Keep an eye on your debuff stacks. Kurog Grimtotem. This boss has 2 alternating phases. Phase 1 is against Grimtotem and lasts about 2 minutes. Phase 2 lasts until the ads are killed and then Phase 1 mechanics will resume. Phase 1. The arena is broken into 4 sections, each with their own elemental properties. Grimtotem has different abilities and does different damage depending on which altar he is standing. Each altar applies a dot to every raid member that deals damage every 4 seconds. This dot stacks and increases the damage taken, meaning the raid needs to move to different altars throughout the battle. For the first phase, the raid should start in the Altar of Frost, and once Grimtotem reaches 19 stacks of Frost Dominance, he should be moved to the Altar of Flame. Altar of Frost. Frost Dominance. Kurog will inflict frost damage to every raid member every 4 seconds. Every cast will increase Frost Dominance damage by 10%. This stacks. Biting Chill hits all raid members and deals damage every second for 10 seconds. Absolute Zero targets 1 player, deals massive damage. Players need to group up in order to spread out the damage. Altar of Flame. Flame Dominance. Kurog will inflict fire damage to every raid member every 4 seconds. Every cast will increase Flame Dominance damage by 10%. This stacks. Magma Burst. Targets random players, inflicts damage and leaves behind a magma pool. Searing Carnage. Targets players that will mark locations every 1 second for 5 seconds. The marked location explodes after 2 seconds, dealing damage to any close players. Phase 2. Kurog will protect himself and 2 ads will spawn. These ads reflect which altars were active during Phase 1, meaning if the fire and frost altars were active, then 1 fire and 1 frost elemental will spawn. Each ad does continuous stacking damage the longer it is alive. Blazing Fiend will spawn magma pools every 10 seconds. Frozen Destroyer. This is the highest priority target. It casts frostbinds that deal massive damage over time and slows every raid member and stacks. This is interruptible and needs to be interrupted every cast. Also uses Freezing Tempest. When channeled, every raid member needs to run towards the ad and stand within the circle to reduce the damage taken. Phase 1 Part 2. You can start in either altar, Earth or Storm. Just move the boss at around 16 stacks to keep the damage even. Altar of Earth. Earth Dominance. Kurog will inflict Earth damage to every raid member every 4 seconds. Every cast will increase Earth Dominance damage by 10%. This stacks. Erupting Bedrock. Sends out a ripple that starts close and then spreads further out. Deals massive damage. Seismic Rupture. Pulls Earth from the ground, inflicting damage to players within 10 yards and knocking them back. This also creates ads that need to be killed. Altar of Storm. Storm Dominance. Kurog will inflict nature damage to every raid member every 4 seconds. Every cast will increase the damage by 10%, and it stacks. Shocking Burst. Targets random players. After 5 seconds, any player within the ring will also take damage. Thunderstrike. Kurog targets random areas for lightning strikes. This must hit players, otherwise it will deal massive damage to the entire raid. Phase 2 Part 2. Tectonic Crusher, Ground Shatter. Targets some raid members and will leave an effect on the ground once the timer expires. Move these away from the raid. Violent Upheaval will mark random locations and knock players up. Breaking Gravel. This is a tank ability and applies a damage increase debuff. Thundering Ravager. This is the highest priority target. It will vanish and appear behind a random member. It channels lethal current that deals damage every second for 6 seconds. This will also jump to other members that are too close. Phase 1, The End. Move Kurog back to the Altar of Flame, or whichever dominant stack is the lowest. Burn him down to end the fight. Role specific duties. Tanks. Tank the boss near the wall. He uses Sundering Strike. This will knock you back and stacks. Taunt swap after each hit. Start the fight in the Altar of Frost. At 19 stacks, move to the Altar of Flame. During Phase 2, move the adds away from the ground effects. Phase 1 Part 2. Start in the Earth or Storm Altar. Move to the other altar at around 15 stacks. After the second Phase 2, tank the boss in the Altar of Flame. Healers. Raid-wide damage will continuously increase the longer the raid stays in one altar. Save cooldowns for the higher stacks. DPS. Focus on numbers. Quickly kill adds during the Altar of Earth. Prioritize the Frost add and the Storm add during Phase 2. So that's it for the second wing. Let me know in the comments which of these bosses is your favorite. Personally, I think Grimtotem is the best fight. If this guide was helpful, then please press the like button. If you enjoy WoW guides, then consider subscribing to the channel. You can also support me by checking out my Patreon or channel memberships. I'll see you in the next one.